Okay, this is the cleaver, which needs its own maintenance a lot more often than your single fiber cleaver. Every time this cleaves, that blade is skating across 12 fibers. It gets dull 10 times fast, well, I guess 12 times faster than a single. So with this particular one, rotating a blade, this is a blade for this cleaver. If you notice, there are indexing holes around the center here. This particular cleaver has an indexing pin that backs out. You rotate the blade, and then that indexing pin gets tightened, and it'll make contact with that hole, basically locking the blade in that position. So when the indexing pin is backed off, the blade is free to rotate. What's nice about this one is when you do rotate the blade, you will not be changing the height whatsoever. So it's a fairly easy process. When this gets dull, rotate to the next position. The only downside to this is you can't split the positions on here because you want that indexing pin to always hit one of those holes. Okay, so you can't really tighten this in to be able to work the blade in between two of the numbers. If that indexing pin is not in this hole and pushing up against the side of this blade, most likely it's going to skew the blade a little bit, and you don't want that. So this blade is different than the Sumitomo cleaver. So the trash can needs to come off first, and with this cleaver it just pulls straight off. And just to show the trash can and how that works, if I flip this open, you can see all the scrap in there, the shards. Turning this little knob spins these little brushes, if you can see how the glass is in there. So when you spin that, it pulls the scrap into the trash can area, and this hinges out to get out of the way. When you're emptying the trash can, do not let this flop as you shake the can. The little hinge area here is so small, and it's just plastic. That rips pretty easy. I think over time that's going to break anyway. It won't harm it. This will still set in here and work properly. It'll just be able to detach because that won't last forever. But if you shake it without supporting this, it's going to pop off easy. But you do that, and over the trash can, spin that knob a few more times trying to get all those other scraps out of there. But that's how you empty the trash can. So we set that aside. With this cleaver, there's only a few steps to get the blade rotated. With the blade not set, which means that that's not pushed in, it's not in that position, it's there. There is a guard here on the blade. And it's just plastic, it doesn't even snap in. You take your finger, you can lift this right out. And you set that aside. The blade's exposed, and it's also easier to clean the blade when this is off if you need to wipe that a little bit. So with the blade not set, you can pull that off. To get to the screw that you need to turn to rotate the blade, you will have to set it. Now if you look where the trash can was attached, there's 2 metric bolts in here. Between them is a hole. When the blade is set like that, you can put your Allen key in that hole, and you'll feel it engage into that indexing pin that's down in there. If the blade is not set and you look in there, that's blocked. You cannot get to the indexing pin. So to change that, you need to set the blade like that. Now this thing will drop into that indexing pin. You just jiggle a little bit, you'll feel it pop in. Then you just loosen it a few turns. Now, if we can see, the blade is able to spin. So the idea now is to look from the side so that the number is vertical, and it gives you the best opportunity to tighten the indexing pin, and it will find its hole and tighten it. If you're in between numbers, that indexing pin is going to push on the side of the blade and make it crooked. What I like to do is, before it's all the way tight, rock the blade back and forth a little bit to ensure that that indexing pin actually found its hole, and just snug it a little bit. You don't torque that down. It just needs to be there snug enough so the blade doesn't want to spin anymore. And that's it. And because your finger's been on top of it, you should clean the blade before using it again. And so once that's tight, if you let the blade go again so it's in this state, then you can put the blade guard back in. It just goes in the back first and just drops down. And from that point, you slide your trash can back on and you're back in business. The best indicator to know when your blade is starting to get dull, when you're trying to cleave, the blade will cut all the fibers. It'll cleave, but your scraps don't end up getting pulled into the trash can. You'll see them all wadded up on this far pad, and you'll have to pull the trash can off, set this so that this raises, and shake or blow out all your scraps. That'll happen every few cleaves, and when you see that, that's a good indication that the blade is getting dull. I don't know the reason for that, but it seems to follow that that's what happens. So when you're still getting cleaves and they still may look okay, but your scraps are not being pulled in the trash can, that's a sign that it's time to rotate your blade. And I can't tell you offhand how many cleaves you're going to get, but it's a lot less than the single fiber cleavers. And that's about it for this. When it's time to put the cleaver away, it's set like that. If I spin this around, this was the little lever that we popped this up when we pulled it out of the case. So you just hold that down, pull that little lever back, and it locks, keeping that arm down. Now this is ready to go back into the cleaver case. And your cleaver case should have the Allen wrench that came with it somewhere in there. If not, these are all metric. I'm not sure what size this is. Probably 1.5 millimeter, maybe. But if you're missing it, you can go get a cheap metric set of Allen keys. The one that comes with the 3M cases is not metric. It doesn't really fit these, so don't try to force it. Go and get yourself a proper metric Allen key, and that's how you do the cleaver blade change, or not change, rotating it.